The tourist thought his money gave him free rein, mocking the Queen's Guard with every sarcastic remark. But when Sergeant James responded with unexpected grace, the crowd was left stunned. Little did anyone know, this clash of arrogance and honor would ignite a legendary showdown that no one saw coming. What happened next changed everything. The London sun cast a golden glow over Red Square, reflecting off shop windows and creating the perfect backdrop for another swarm of tourists. At the center stood Sergeant James of the Queen's Guard, unwavering and dignified. His bright red tunic was impeccably pressed, and his black bearskin cap sat firmly on his head, a living symbol of British tradition and honor. Tourists, armed with smartphones and an array of gadgets, surrounded Sergeant James. Among them was a young man wearing a flashy superhero mask, grinning as he tried to capture attention. "Hey buddy, give us a smile for the camera," he shouted, phone held high. Sergeant James merely tilted his head slightly, eyes fixed on his duty. Calmly observing the chaos around him, he ignored the mockery and shouts. "I'm a tourist. I pay money. Entertain me," the superhero masked man added, clearly trying to provoke a reaction. The crowd chuckled, some tourists reaching out to touch James's cap, while the superhero tossed coins at his feet, hoping for tips. Despite the taunts, Sergeant James maintained his composure, though a flicker of frustration brewed beneath his stoic exterior. "Seriously, who does that? It's beyond ridiculous," you might think, watching the scene unfold. The contrast was stark, his disciplined presence against their brazen antics. The tourists treated the guard like part of the scenery, forgetting the honor and effort behind his role. One woman nearby shook her head, filming the interaction. "This is disrespectful," she muttered, capturing every moment of the blatant disregard for tradition. Meanwhile, the superhero continued his antics, oblivious to the growing tension. Sergeant James stood firm, embodying the very essence of resilience and respect for heritage. Inside, he battled the urge to respond, knowing that maintaining dignity was paramount. The tourist behavior wasn't just annoying, it was a blatant assault on centuries-old customs, and it was infuriating to witness. As the day progressed, the tension between tradition and modern entitlement simmered, setting the stage for what would become a legendary showdown. Ben, the guy in the superhero mask, wasn't done yet. He cranked up the antics, grabbing Sergeant James's cap and trying to balance it on the guard's sword while snapping selfies. "Come on, James. Show us how a real hero defends his values," he laughed, the crowd eating it up. "Seriously, who does that? It's beyond ridiculous." The crowd split. Some laughed, some sided with Ben, and others shook their heads in disbelief. "This is our cultural symbol," a woman nearby snapped, recording every second on her phone. Ben pushed things further, literally, giving the horse a nudge. The horse started pacing nervously, and Sergeant James remained calm, soothing the animal without missing a beat. Meanwhile, a tourist's backpack fell, spilling out a terrified, crying child. Now we're talking chaos. Ben's actions were a clear assault on tradition, and the tension was palpable. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some were amused, others outraged. "Are you serious right now?" you might think, watching Ben's blatant disrespect. The contrast was stark. James's unwavering discipline against Ben's blatant irreverence. As the horse settled, James noticed the child and immediately stepped in, breaking protocol to comfort the kid. Ben's smirk faltered as he saw the respect James commanded without saying a word. The crowd's mood shifted, whispers of disapproval replacing earlier laughter. "Look at him," someone murmured. "A true gentleman." Ben realized his stunt had backfired. The tourist began to see him for what he was, a nuisance, not a hero. The stage was set for a showdown that no one would forget. Everything changed in an instant. A small boy, terrified from the backpack mishap, started crying loudly. Without a second thought, Sergeant James broke protocol. He knelt down, gently lifting the child into his arms. Wrapping his coat around the boy, he whispered calming words, his stern facade melting into genuine compassion. The crowd fell silent, watching the guard's unexpected tenderness. Ben, the superhero tourist, saw the shift. His smirk faltered as he realized his antics had gone too far. "Sorry, sir. I didn't mean to," he began, but James cut him off with a subtle nod and a wry smile. "Looks like true strength is keeping your cool and helping others." James replied, his voice steady but edged with irony. The sarcasm wasn't lost on anyone watching. Ben's bravado deflated instantly. Seriously, who does that? It's just unbelievable, you might think, seeing Ben's embarrassment. The crowd's mood flipped. Laughter turned to murmurs of approval for James. Phones were no longer capturing Ben's foolishness, but James's honorable act. Social media exploded with videos of the moment. Comments poured in. Respect for our gods. True heroism. Ben, you're the real villain here. The tourists who had laughed and jeered now felt the sting of public opinion. Ben stood there, realizing he had lost control of the situation. His attempts to mock tradition had backfired spectacularly. James handed the boy back to his relieved parents, maintaining his composure throughout. The crowd erupted in applause, some even wiping away tears at the guard's display of humanity. Ben, seeing the tide turn, could only watch as his reputation took a nosedive. The once amused tourists now saw him as the disruptor, not the entertainer. Guess being a tourist doesn't give you a free pass to disrespect, someone in the crowd remarked, echoing everyone's silent condemnation. Ben's shoulders slumped as he understood the gravity of his actions. The legend of the superhero tourist was tarnished, all because he underestimated the power of true dignity. Social media exploded. Comments flooded in. Real heroes don't need masks. Respect our guards. Tourists who had been causing chaos were now the target of scorn. Some were kicked off the square, escorted out by stern-faced officers. Seriously, who does that? It's just unbelievable, you might think, watching the fallout. Sergeant James, unfazed by the sudden attention, straightened his uniform and took his place back at the post. He adjusted his cap, his eyes scanning the applauding crowd with a subtle smile. A tourist approached him, nervously clearing his throat. Thank you for setting an example, sir. You really made our day. James nodded respectfully. Glad to serve, he replied, his tone both humble and firm. The crowd's applause grew louder, a clear sign of their approval. The once mocking tourists now felt the weight of public opinion. We all know the Queen's Guard isn't here for your entertainment, someone in the crowd remarked, echoing everyone's silent condemnation. A light breeze fluttered James's cape as he stood tall, embodying resilience and honor. The atmosphere shifted from chaos to respect. Phones stopped capturing foolish antics and focused on the guard's dignified presence. Look at him, a woman whispered to her companion. A true gentleman. Ben, the superhero tourist, watched in disbelief as his stunt unraveled. The realization hit him hard. His attempt to mock tradition had only highlighted its importance. He slumped, the mask of bravado slipping away. Guess being a tourist doesn't give you a free pass to disrespect, he muttered, feeling the sting of regret. The crowd began to disperse, leaving behind an air of admiration and acknowledgement. James remained at his post, the symbol of unwavering tradition amidst fleeting modernity. The story of the superhero tourist versus the Queen's Guard quickly became a legendary tale in London, a testament to true dignity and the enduring respect for cultural heritage. As the sun set, casting long shadows over Red Square, James's figure stood resolute. He had protected not just a tradition, but the very essence of British honor. And as the crowd faded into the evening, the legacy of that day was clear. Respect and honor triumph over entitlement and disrespect.